about keeping your organisation's information safe and giving you some key skills, because unfortunately cybersecurity is all too much in the press at the moment. And my colleague is recording the session. The information will be shared with you via email in a day or two, as soon as we can get that out together with the slides. So you will get everything. I would like to begin the session just by acknowledging the traditional custodians of the land. I'm joining from Boonwurrung land in the Kulin Nation. It's in the southeast of Melbourne, but also recognise you'll all be joining from many different places across the country where sovereignty was never ceded. I pay my respects to elders past, present and emerging, and I think it's fabulous to see more valuable discussions starting to happen in this space in terms of treaties and sovereignty, and it's really nice to see some positive movement finally, given the injustices that have occurred for far too many years. What we're going to cover today is cybersecurity threats facing organisations, the top 5 things that we really want you to do to keep your organisation's data safe, some resources to extend your knowledge, because in a lightning half-hour lunch and learn tech, we're not going to be able to cover everything, and we'll also give you 5-10 minutes to ask, and we will answer any questions you have. So anything relating to your environment, just make sure that you ask. If we don't know the answer, we know a bit, but we don't always know everything, we will absolutely come back to you offline. So we are excited to make sure that we give you the greatest possible value. Please put your video on, as I mentioned earlier, but mute if you're not asking questions. Feel free to raise your hand. It's generally up the top if you're using the Windows Teams client, or just come off mute if it's really important and on a topic we're talking about, because we're really keen to make sure it's of value for you. The webinar will be shared within 2 days together with a copy of the presentation, and so we really look forward to you making the greatest possible use of this half an hour. I was reading the paper only this morning. Medibank confirms client data posted on the dark web and accessible. So there you go. This is the top. That was one of the top stories in this morning's paper. It's like, holy moly. And I think from my perspective, I'm now a non-profit technology professional. I really only work with the non-profit sector, and Medibank has more resources than most organisations that I work with, to be perfectly honest, and they're being challenged by this issue. You can see on the list Optus. I was caught up in the Optus breach. Thankfully, I wasn't caught up in Medibank, Oxfam, Uniting Care Queensland. There's Victorian organisations I've worked with. One of them which is on there is also being caught up. So this is very real. And it's not going away. The numbers are only increasing. I think the latest stats I saw were $4 billion of lost revenue as a result of cyber challenges. And so I think from our perspective, we're really keen to make sure cyber is a part of everyone's thinking, cybersecurity. And that's because one of the key challenges is that the way people work with technology is a key issue. It wasn't the issue that drove the Medibank challenge, but people clicking on links and not thinking about things and not taking appropriate precautions is the number one issue that in the breaches that I've had organisations come to me for assistance with. And so that's why we've started this webinar series. It happens every month, trying to help non-profit staff understand how to keep information safe. It's free because we want everyone to attend, and we got we kept saying to everyone, train your staff, and we suddenly realised it's just going to be easier for us to run a monthly training session and give everyone those skills. So please pass the word around. As you can see, Verizon Data Breach Investigations report this year, 82% of breaches involve the human element. That's someone not doing the right thing. And security behaviour is greatly influenced by you and your perceptions of risk. So the more that you think about, is what I'm doing safe, the more you will keep that information safe. And so we want to talk through 5 things in terms of how you can work with your organisation to keep your information safe. I'm going to cover the first part of the presentation, and going to wrap up towards the end. And the first thing that we really want everyone to think about is knowing how to spot a phishing email. So this is the most popular way, or the biggest issue that we've seen in terms of how non-profit organisations allow someone into their organisation that shouldn't have access to their data. And so this is why we cover this first. This is a really nice graphic from Hivent, and these are the 7 ways, and we'll talk about this for a couple of minutes, as well as do a few examples. And the 7 ways are: number 1, check the from address. If it's a strange from address, it probably shouldn't be trusted. Number 2, check the reply to address. If that's different to the from address, that's often an indication that there's a problem there. Number 3, poor spelling, grammar or design. The more it looks like it's been rushed together, the more that people haven't taken appropriate time to get the fonts and the size and the grammar right, that's another indication. Number 4, if there are attachments in the email that you didn't ask for, they're often the way that viruses will get into the computer. Generic greeting, something that's not dear Marcus or dear Anne, dear taxpayer, dear person, dear sir. Again, there's another indication. So there's the 5th. Number 6, an urgent call to action. It's really important that you transfer this money by tomorrow. And number 7, strange links. So we'll cover that in another slide or 2 as well. But the more you hover over links to see what the link addresses are, the more it's going to be a good indication as to whether or not the email is safe, or whether or not you need to treat it as a risk. So there's sort of the 7 things that we think are really important that every staff member needs to understand. So here's a little example that we just want to talk through. So can you spot, is this a phishing email or not, is the big question. And let's have a little bit of a talk. So couple of things here that, and I'll talk through 2 of these, and then I'll ask you for your input on 1. So a couple of things here. Number 1, official Australian government agency emblem. That's a bit of a weird thing. Why on earth would that be sitting there? So there's one indication that something's not right. Number 2, we've got some strange fonts going on here, both the right, they haven't bothered from the left. Number 3, there's no personalisation. It's not a dear Marcus, it's not a dear Amy, it's just we are writing to you. They all are also asking for your name, your tax file number, your complete address. The Australian government would never ask for that information over email. And so there's a sort of 4th issue. And the other one is email is not secure. Even though it says it's a secure message, email is not a secure medium. It can be intercepted. So, unless, so there's a 5th reason that says this is probably a dodgy email asking for you to fill out that information. Does that all make sense? Any questions on that before a couple of nods? Any questions on that before I jump through to the next suggestion. Beautiful. Here's another quick example. So this is, and sometimes you will request these, they'll come through. Sometimes you won't request them. I've certainly had some of these that come through. In this sort of example, the things that are worth checking and the things that we recommend organisations look at are, is the email address associated with the organisation? So for instance, Good to Give, there's a URL down there. The email address is associated with that. It's a personalised email, so it's Dear Jane. Obviously, we're assuming that the person's name is Jane. And there's a reset password button, and when you hover over it, again, it is aligned with goodtogive.ngo. And so there's 3 indications that it is most likely. This one is most likely a valid email. One of the things we do say is, if you're ever unsure, it's really important to pick up the phone and call, right? There's it is always, and this is the one thing I say is, clicking on reply is not a good way of going, hey, is this a real email? The answer will pretty well often be yes, even if the real answer is no, because I've certainly had experiences where I've emailed to say, hey, I think your email's been hacked. I get a reply back, no, it definitely hasn't. I'll pick up the phone going, are you aware that I've just sent you this email and got this request? And I've got, holy moly, someone's in my email replying to you without me realizing it. So the phone is a really good way of validating anything that you're not sure about. Just make sure you use the phone number that you have separately, not the phone number down the bottom of an email, which again is another way that hackers will actually, direct. I've had 3 in the last month examples come through to me of organisations that have call centres set up to take these calls. So it's just really important to use that validation process. Here's another example, and this one I'm interested in what you think we should do. So, and Anne will pop up a poll. So this is an email that has come in to your email address, let's say, and what's your view? Is it a real example? Is it a phishing email? So you can see there's the from details, there's the hover over details. What would you do in terms of click and enter or delete the email? That's the question that I wanted to pose to the group. We'll give people a couple of minutes just to provide in. Oh, we've already got 14 responses. You guys are rapid fire today. It's beautiful to see. And 100% are getting it right. So, yep, very quickly, I won't go over this very much. Couple of little indications here, customer service with an extra S on there. There's also the hover over, it's going to a non-Coles email address. So there's 2 very simple indications that it's dodgy. In the last one of these, we got the question, Coles.com, can people spoof that? So if it's, yes, it's coming from Coles, bit of a weird one. The short answer is yes, people can impersonate email addresses. It's not always easy to do in a way that's undetectable, but it's absolutely possible. The same as I still get more and more these days phishing texts from people asking me, and they do not use their real phone numbers. It is very easy to pretend to be someone else's mobile phone number. And so these are just some of the things that unfortunately technology is not as good as it should be at this point in time. And these are why people are using some of these vehicles to get around it. Questions at this stage, or I'll just keep ploughing through? Beautiful, couple of head shakes. Next one, if you work with money, so if you're in accounts, if you're in finance, if you're the CEO, you need to be extra careful. You are a bigger target because you've got the ability that give money out. So our stated position is actually don't trust electronic mechanisms. Don't trust emails with BSB account details. Verify information by speaking with the individual, speaking with staff, speaking with suppliers. Use a verified phone number, not the number listed on the email. Had someone relay to me in the last call about, payroll got details. It was an email that looked completely legit. And someone asking for the BSB and account number to be changed. It was not real from the person, and so they were trying to direct that money away. So just using that second validation process, if you deal with money, is really important. All right. Number 2, protect important and sensitive information. So the law does require everyone, organisations, to take reasonable measures to protect sensitive information. So for instance, that means if you've got health data, and that's why this is actually why, one of the headlines on that slide 2 with all the breaches lately, there is, now a lawsuit likely to come against Medibank because there's the question of whether or not they had taken reasonable measures to protect health information of their clients and their members. So most organisations require sensitive data to only be stored in certain locations, and they make that clear. So for instance, most of the organisations we work with, if they've got client data, they use a client case management system or a CRM, and they say store it in there. Don't leave it on a USB stick in an airport, as a really bad example. Don't leave it on your PC and walk away from your PC, or make sure that you put it somewhere safe. Don't email it to someone outside the organisation with a big Excel file full of all those details. So making sure that you do align your practices with whatever your organisation recommends is really important. If your organisation isn't giving you clarity, we really recommend you ask. Where should I store this information that I think of as sensitive? It's health data, it's a tax file number, etc. That's important because your organisation will have stronger protections against some areas than others. Some areas will likely be backed up, some areas will likely not be backed up. So making sure you're aware of where it's recommended you store that information is really important. Number 3, use good password practices. This is 3 of 5. That means multi-factor authentication, particularly for, whether if you use, as most non-profits do these days, the Microsoft 365 or Google Workspace environment. That's really important. Don't share passwords, don't reuse passwords, and use a good password manager to generate and securely record passwords is what we would suggest. Many organisations are picking up a password manager for staff. Even if you don't, both OnePass and, no, sorry, I've got that wrong. Both Dashlane and LastPass have free options for password managers for individuals. Number 4, keep your device secure. That's about physically protecting it. Don't ignore warnings. If you're using your own device, make sure you only store, as in home device, only store the information that your organisation is comfortable with you doing that, and ensure that it is appropriately secured. So it has remote wipe, security updates are installed, all those sorts of things. And number 5, report everything you're not sure about. MyGlue password manager. Hey Lee, I'm not sure about MyGlue, so yes, that's, hey, how are you? MyGlue is, yes, correct. It's not easily available for most non-profits is the only issue with MyGlue, Lee, so that's why it's not are listed. But from my perspective, the more that you report anything you're not sure about and talk through with an IT professional, likely, the more you will make sure that you are doing the right thing. There's also a number there for the ACSC's National Cyber Hotline, who give really good advice and support as well. Anne, can you just talk through some key takeaways?
Thank you, Marcus. So after all the good examples and case studies, now we'll go with some key takeaways. The first 3 points are the most important one, and it's very useful for your personal daily digital life. You always need to use strong, unique passwords. You can easily check those passwords that are normally used and has been easily hacked by hackers online, such as 1 to 9. That is not good, strong password. So always keep yourself safe online with a strong, unique password. Next, beware of phishing emails. We have had very good examples of phishing emails in the previous slides. Email addresses can easily be spoofed and appear to originate from people you know. So feel free to validate requests if they appear suspicious. And always feel free to pick up a call. So you verify if that actual person that sent you that email, sent you that message. And the third one is remember that fraudster will create websites, send texts, and call you to lie and mimic the real suppliers or banks to capture your information. So do not log into a web page that you have reached through a link in an email or particularly finance-related matters. Recently, I've had emails sent to me that asking my bank details or my ID number. Those are very suspicious. So when in doubt, call public listed phone numbers to verify, or call that exact persons to verify it's real, not the number or not the details that given in that suspicious email or message. The next points are useful in general. You should store sensitive data only in designated locations, especially sensitive data such as health data or personal information of your clients in your organizations. Always use multi-factor authentication on accounts for important or critical IT system, especially those that are using cloud platforms such as Microsoft 365 or Google Workspace or Gmail or Google Drive. And you need to be more and more careful when those are organizational or business account. Try to keep your device secure physically and online, and try to know your IT and security policies provided by your organization, so you follow them and then use them as a tool to protect yourself online. And finally, you should know who you should report or go to when there's something suspicious. So if you are worried or you are not sure about what's going on, you go to that tech champion or your IT support for help. Now I'll hand it back to Marcus.
Thanks, Anne. There's a bunch of next slide. Bunch of useful resources that I'm not going to talk through, but they are very useful. They will be in your packs that we will send out shortly. Anne's going to pop in a link in chat to a quick survey, only 3 or 4 questions, but I am very keen to open it up. Please either raise your hand or just come off mute. Do you have any questions that we can help with in terms of your cybersecurity posture, how to keep your information safe in a non-for-profit environment? You're a quiet mob today. I'll jump to some, that's unusual. I'm going to jump to some frequently asked questions. So in the chat, you'll see the link to the survey, just in terms of webinar feedback, and frequently asked questions, and interrupt me if you want to talk. or if you have any questions. So what's a good password manager is one we almost always get, but I did cover this very quickly. For individuals, I like both LastPass and Dashlane only because they have solid free options. Lee's IT provider provides him with a great solution as well, but that's not always available for organisations. For organisations, Connecting Up does offer Dashlane with a good non-profit discount. So there's some options that many organisations use for. Best IT support options for small non-profit organisations. Well, Jeff, I've always got to say Info Exchange because we're a non-profit as well. Happy to introduce you to someone if that's of interest. But if you're using Google or some other particular support needs, happy to have a longer conversation offline. So don't hesitate to reach out to me separately or stay on the line after everyone else goes if you want to talk through it. Connecting Up also does have a non-profit suppliers database, no problems, where you can search for organisations that are friendly to non-profits and provide IT support. So there's a third option. What should I do if my 365 Google Workspace environment is only secured with a password? Please go talk to your IT team. This is really, in our view, a non-negotiable and has been a non-negotiable for a number of years now. If you don't have multi-factor authentication enabled on it, and both Microsoft and Google have required it in all new environments for the last couple of years. They also think it's critical. It's really important that that gets addressed quickly. So that's the next one. The other one that we've had the question of is if you've got Outlook, there's a top right of the default ribbon now has a junk or report message button. And I get questions about should I delete, should I archive, what should I do? But essentially that report message button is useful because it helps to train the phishing rules around what is junk, what is not junk, and what is phishing. So using that junk option or phishing option or not junk option if they've got it wrong is really useful, primarily because it helps the others and it helps the rules-based engines learn. All right, last chance. This is the first time we've done one of these and not had a question, or apart from Jeff's one, which was a nice, easy one to assist with. Any more questions we can help with? I will open it up once more. Otherwise, thank you so much for attending. Please, think about the information that your organisation has and your role in keeping it safe. We're running another webinar in a couple of weeks for IT managers and the key things that we think are really important in keeping information safe. But the more you keep that front of mind and the more you ask questions and do the right thing, the more you will be protected and your client's information will be protected as well. I will let people jump off the line. Oh, security review. Nice questions, Caitlin. That's a big question. So the security review is really interesting question, and only because you can do something that big or you can do something that big.
Yeah.
And same with cost. So what there's a few options there. The first question I would ask would be, do you need to align yourself with any particular security standards as part of your contractual obligations? And the reason I say that is, if you're an organisation delivering health and human services in Victoria, you may need to be aligned with the VPDSS, Victorian Data Protective Security Standards, I think it is. If you're, an organisation delivering national stuff, you may need to be aligned with ISO 27001 or another of the security standards. So being aware of what you need to be aligned to then gives you an indication of, what you should be testing against.
Yeah.
Sorry, go on.
Sorry, thanks for that, Marcus. So yeah, is this something like a general or basic review, which can, like, just to begin with, that gives us an indication like, okay, so now we need to go into this depth of the security review, like as you're saying, it can be like this or it can be quite massive?
I would suggest the ACSC's Essential 8, Australian Cybersecurity Centre's Essential 8, is a very good place to start.
Okay.
It's recently been updated. I agree with 90% of it, if that sort of makes sense. I don't have it on there by the look of it, but if you Google it, you will see. Yeah. And they've got 3 levels of security, 3 levels of maturity across 8 key questions, like, do you have backups? Are you patching? Do you have MFA enabled? Tell us about your Office macros, those sorts of things. That's you can do that yourself. You can ask an external security provider to do it for you. And so and it's not too complex and deep. So that's a good place to start, if that makes sense.
Cool. Thanks, Marcus. Makes sense.
Fantastic. No problems. Thanks, everyone. If there's anything else, don't hesitate to stay on the line. Otherwise, I will let you get back to your lunch, given I didn't see anyone eating while I was talking. Stay safe online, look after your information, and great to have you on the webinar.
Peace. Thank you.
Cheers.
Bye.
Thank you.